Mummies have always sparked our curiosity, offering a scary glimpse into the lives and deaths of our ancient ancestors. But what most people don't know is that they aren't just confined to the tombs of Egypt. From the frozen peaks of the Andes to the misty catacombs of Italy, they have been found in the most unexpected places, each with a story that's as strange as it is unsettling. With that in mind, let's take a look at 15 weird mummy encounters that left scientists stunned. And trust us, once you see them, you'll pray to the Lord for being born in the modern era. Number 15. Guanauato. The mummies in Guanauato are evidence of something that went very wrong. Several of them died in complete terror, their faces frozen in distorted, panicked expressions. One woman bit into her own arm, likely after waking up inside her coffin. Her mouth was full of blood. Her teeth marks are still there. That detail alone has haunted visitors for years, including author Ray Bradbury, who left the place deeply shaken. These weren't royal mummies or ceremonial stuff. They were normal people whose families couldn't afford grave taxes. When the bills went unpaid, the bodies were pulled out and stored in open crypts. Some were naturally preserved by the dry air, others by pure chance. Now they stand in rows, still dressed, faces sunken but disturbingly expressive. There's no fiction in this story. What you're looking at are people who weren't ready to die, trapped in the worst possible moment, and left out for everyone to see. Number 14. The Kilakat baby mummy. In a rocky tomb near Kilakat, a 6-month-old boy was found resting on the bodies of 3 women and another child. The ice kept their skin, hair, and clothing almost intact. It's believed the boy had Down syndrome and was buried alive with his dead mother, in line with a brutal tradition. There's no poetry in that, just a practice that saw some lives treated as expendable. The burial is dated to around 1460 CE. Alongside them were nearly 80 garments made from reindeer, seal, and other animal hides. These weren't ceremonial. They were their real clothes, hand-stitched and lived in. The adult woman had faint facial tattoos still visible. But it's the baby's face that unsettles people the most. It doesn't look ancient. It looks recent, like someone who passed yesterday. No myth, no fantasy. Just a cold reminder of how harsh the world once was, and how it didn't care who was too young to understand what was happening. Number 13. Rosalia Lombardo. Rosalia Lombardo died in 1920. She was just 2 years old, and her father didn't want her to disappear into the ground like everyone else. He wanted her to stay exactly as she was. So he brought in Alfredo Salafia, a skilled embalmer, who used a secret method that's still not fully understood. He replaced her blood with formalin, then added alcohol and glycerin to slow drying. Salicylic acid kept fungus away, and zinc salts stiffened the body. What's left doesn't look like a corpse. Her skin is smooth, her eyelashes are still in place, and her lips are sealed gently like she's in a light sleep. She's kept in a sealed glass case filled with nitrogen to stop further decay. Some visitors think they see her eyelids move, but it's just a shadow trick. There's nothing magical about it. It's preservation, done with brutal precision. She is, by the way, look cute. Number 12. Mummy with painted face. This one mummy at the British Museum has a face that doesn't belong to anything human-like. It isn't carved or sculpted. It was drawn directly onto the skin, eyes, eyebrows, and mouth. And somehow that's worse than any rotted skull. This person was painted over, like they needed to be humanized for display. During the 1800s in London, actual mummies were unwrapped on stage as public entertainment. Audiences watched bodies being stripped of their wrappings in packed theaters. It was treated like a show. Stories about cursed tombs came after, not before. The superstitions followed the disrespect. The face on this mummy isn't a curse. It's a product of people treating the dead like props. It's not part of a ritual. It's not part of ancient belief. It's what happened when real people were turned into exhibitions. There's no mystery here, just the aftermath of centuries of arrogance and a face that shouldn't be smiling, but is. Number 11. Christian Friedrich von Kalbutz. Christian Friedrich wasn't a noble hero. He was a knight who used his power to do whatever he wanted, including claiming the right to sleep with newlywed women in his district. One woman refused, so he killed her husband. In court, he denied everything and swore an oath. "If I'm guilty, may my body never rot." That was enough to set him free. But years later, his body was dug up, and it hadn't decayed. No embalming, chemicals, or real explanation. Scientists suggest it was natural mummification from the soil or conditions, but no one knows for sure. His skin still clings to the bone, and his corpse has barely changed in centuries. People stare at it like it's a warning. Maybe he got what he asked for, immortality, but without dignity. He's not resting. He's sitting upright, face tight, arms crossed, like a man who got away with it, but didn't. Number 10. The chilling tale of Venice's vampire grave. In 2006, archaeologists excavating Lazaretto Nuovo, a plague burial site near Venice, found the skeletal remains of a woman with a brick shoved into her mouth. The body lay among hundreds of others, but this one stood out. The 16th century burial wasn't just about death. It reflected deep superstition. Locals once believed that some corpses, especially those showing blood around the mouth, kept feeding even after burial. These so-called shroud eaters were feared to be vampires, blamed for spreading the plague long after death. To stop her from chewing through her burial shroud and escaping the grave, someone forced the brick into her mouth. She wasn't executed. She was feared. It wasn't an isolated belief either. In plague-stricken Europe, desperation blurred the line between disease and folklore. This burial wasn't about ritual or reverence. It was a panicked act against something people didn't understand. Number 9. Holy water, prayers, and spells. In 2016, authorities in Volgograd walked into a flat and found a dead man seated upright on the couch, shrunken, mummified, and untouched for 4 months. His 76-year-old wife, a retired physician, had been trying to bring him back using prayers, holy water, and spells. She told family and friends he was still alive, and somehow they believed her. The apartment was neat, but the smell of decomposition had become impossible to ignore. Neighbors had heard things, noticed the odor, but nobody acted until a leaking faucet gave them an excuse to knock. What disturbed investigators wasn't just the body. It was the woman's calm, delusional resolve. She had no diagnosed mental illness. Friends claimed she was obsessed with a Russian show about psychic powers and the afterlife. It wasn't madness. It was something much harder to explain. Number 8. Siberian Stiff. In July 2016, a corpse was found clinging to a tree 50 feet off the ground in Tomsk, Russia. He'd been dead for 8 months. Still seated, arms wrapped around the trunk, he was dressed in a vest, boots, and thick layers fit for Siberian weather. Nobody knows how he got up there. The tree stood along a remote road leading to Seversk, a closed city that never appeared on old Soviet maps. Seversk isn't just restricted, it's a nerve center for Russia's nuclear industry. Depleted uranium is processed there. In 2015, a container reportedly exploded. In 1993, it saw one of the worst radioactive leaks in the region's history. Locals are used to strange things. But this was different. The man had no ID, just a silent, frozen grip on a pine tree that refused to let go. Investigators are still piecing it together, but in a place like this, answers aren't always part of the package. Number 7. Miracle Child. Since the 1970s, pilgrims have been traveling to Banda, Florida, Argentina, to leave flowers and toys for a child long dead. Miguel Angel Gaitan died of meningitis in 1967, barely a year old. 7 years later, his grave was mysteriously found open. The weather had been severe, but even when the storms passed, stones kept piling near the site. That's when the family had a glass cover placed over Miguel's coffin. What they found inside stunned them. His body was still intact. No rot, no smell, just a tiny child with wrinkled skin and closed eyes. Locals began calling him El Angelito Milagroso, the miracle child. Many say their illnesses vanished after visiting him. One man even claimed his pancreatic cancer disappeared within weeks. To this day, people kneel at his grave, whisper prayers, and press their hands to the glass. Number 6. Aman Hotep II Mummy. In January 1902, the body of Aman Hotep II, one of ancient Egypt's most powerful kings, was examined by Gaston Maspero and Howard Carter. They found a man roughly 1.67 meters tall, with white-streaked brown hair and a striking resemblance to his son, Thutmos IV. In 1907, anatomist Grafton Elliott Smith unwrapped the face and found resin-stained imprints from jewelry, including a beaded collar. The skin showed tiny nodules, possibly from embalming materials or a disease never identified. Smith estimated his age at death between 40 and 50, judging by dental wear and graying hair. Though no cause of death was confirmed, the body was impressively preserved. In 1980, X-rays suggested traits shared with Nubians, adding depth to his lineage. In 2021, Amen Hotep II's mummy was moved in the pharaoh's golden parade, reuniting him with his dynasty in Cairo's new museum. Number 5. Stucky the Dog. Stucky is the preserved corpse of a hunting dog that became permanently trapped inside a hollow chestnut oak sometime in the 1960s. It's believed the dog was chasing a raccoon when it entered the tree through an opening, but it couldn't squeeze through the narrow inner passage. Trapped with no way back and no exit ahead, it eventually died from starvation. But instead of rotting, the dog's body naturally mummified. The interior of the tree was unusually dry, filled with tannins that absorbed moisture and slowed decomposition. The tight space also kept scavengers and insects out. Nearly 60 years passed before loggers cutting down the tree made the grim discovery. Today, the dog remains lodged inside that same section of trunk, on public display at the Southern Forest World Museum in Waycross, Georgia. Number 4. The Hun Warrior. In 1993, 12-year-old Elena Kipchakova stumbled upon a collapsed grotto near Kam-Titugem in Siberia. Inside, she found the preserved body of a Hun warrior placed on a wooden bed and wrapped in fur. Beside him were his weapons. Most strikingly, a bow nearly the height of a grown man. Fragments of arrows showed color markings, possibly used for quick identification during hunts or battles. Some tips were made of iron, others reinforced with a bullhorn. Ancient Chinese texts mention that similar arrows could produce a whistling noise when shot, meant to confuse enemies or scatter animals. Attempts to recreate this effect have failed. Despite interest from larger institutions, locals refuse to give up the remains. Today, the warrior rests in a small museum in Kokoria, where Elena, now an adult, serves as its caretaker. Number 3. Thutmos IV Mummy. Thutmos IV, once entombed in Kf 43 within Egypt's Valley of the Kings, was later relocated to Kf 35, a royal mummy cache. When discovered, his body was missing both feet, but researchers estimated his height at approximately 1.64 meters. His reddish-brown hair was parted neatly at the center, measuring 16 centimeters long. His arms were folded over his chest, ears pierced, and facial features still bore a familial resemblance to his father, Aman Hotep II. Based on dental wear and hair graying, his age at death was placed between 25 and 28, though some argue he may have been older. In the 1980s, X-rays of Thutmos IV and other 18th dynasty royals showed traits similar to contemporary Nubians. More recently, researchers have proposed that multiple pharaohs from this lineage may have died young due to inherited temporal lobe epilepsy, possibly explaining Thutmos's vision inscribed on the dream stele. Number 2. The Mummified Hand. In Hungary's Nyarlathotep village, a cemetery from the 12th to 16th centuries held over 500 graves. While reviewing photos from earlier excavations, researchers noticed something strange. Only one body had mummified, and just one hand. The limb belonged to an infant. Curious, they tested the remains and found shockingly high levels of copper. They later discovered a coin inside the child's hand. This wasn't random. In old Christian folk traditions, children who died unbaptized were sometimes buried with a coin, believed to pay St. John the Baptist to perform the rite in the afterlife. Even stranger, the coin dated between 1858 and 1862, more than 150 years after the cemetery was abandoned. The baby had also been buried in a jar, following another old tradition. Sadly, there are no records from Hungary that mention this burial practice, making it one of the country's most puzzling archaeological mysteries. Number 1. Club Dead. Rosalia Lombardo may be the most famous mummy in Palermo's Capuchin catacombs, but she's far from alone. Thousands of corpses, some elegantly dressed, others bizarrely arranged, form what researchers now call Club Dead. These weren't standard burials. The deceased were propped up, positioned in chairs, or hung on walls. Each group was sorted by gender, age, profession, or social class. Men in military uniforms, women in evening gowns. Lawyers and doctors are placed in the corridor of professionals. Infants were placed in cribs in the nursery. The preservation was handled by monks, who were paid by families to regularly clean and change the dead's clothing. Over time, most of the corpses began to fall apart, but their staged poses remain unsettlingly intact. Despite their fragile state, they still feel disturbingly lifelike, like dolls posed for eternity. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe for more amazing content like this. Thanks for hanging with us, and we'll see you in the next one.